Morning, it's December 5th, and this is to my liberal friends. While the economy will always be the top issue in most presidential elections, there are other issues that influence voters, and candidates have to pay attention to them. And one of these issues is immigration and border security. It's become very acute here in this country at this point in time. The situation at the southern border continues to fester, and the Biden administration, along with its Democratic allies in Congress, have no solution and want to push the issue to the back burner. They don't see how to win with certain voting blocs, so they allow the problem to just simmer without solving it in the long run. Last Thursday, the Border Patrol reported about 9,000 illegal immigrants were arrested on the southern border. To better understand that number, I would refer you to the testimony of President Obama's Homeland Security Secretary, Jay Johnson, who testified that any more than 1,000 arrests a day would constitute a crisis. But if you listen to the Biden administration, they will tell you there is no crisis and the border is secure. And they ask you to not believe your own eyes when you watch the news. For most of the time, illegal border crossings were a problem for the states along the border. That would primarily mean Texas, Arizona, and California. But that equation began to change by one simple decision by the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, to start transporting these immigrants to cities in the north of the United States. These were the cities that declared themselves sanctuaries, where immigrants were welcomed and did not have to fear being turned over to Immigration Control and Enforcement, ICE. In most cases, they prohibited their law enforcement agencies from cooperating with ICE. Well, the problem shows no sign of abating. In 2022, the Border Patrol encountered 2.2 million people crossing the border illegally. And that does not count the getaways that most experts say would push that number to about 3 million. This year, we have seen another 1.6 million illegal crossings, and the getaways make that number over 2 million. In cities like New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, the cost of caring for these immigrants is now straining their budgets, and recently the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, announced that budget cuts to other programs, including the police, would have to take place to cover the cost of the immigrants. People are being displaced from their living places. There is a report that a 95-year-old Korean War veteran was informed he had 2 months to find other living arrangements and leave the nursing facility in New York because the city struck a deal with a facility to house illegal immigrants. Almost 200 sites across New York City now house illegal immigrants, and that's according to CNN, including hotels and office buildings. Well, Democrats, at least some of them, are finally waking up and realizing the illegal immigration problem is one they can no longer ignore. It's no longer a border state problem, and now has the people in Democratic cities up in arms about what's occurring. So that's led to discussion in the Senate about how to fix the border problem and also address the overall immigration issue. Republicans are forcing the issue by linking aid to Ukraine to some moves on the border. Democrats and progressives are upset that Republicans are attempting to chip away at the humanitarian parole authority of the Biden administration and view it as a total non-starter, especially if no action on behalf of dreamers, those brought to the U.S. as children, is included in any deal. Republicans want to tighten the rules under which people can claim asylum. Well, I think most of us know that immigrants are well coached on what to say when they cross the border and give themselves up. Most people fully understand that the vast majority of immigrants crossing the border are doing so for economic reasons. Under the current rules, all they have to do is claim a credible fear, very difficult to prove or disprove, of being persecuted in their own country. The number of asylum seekers has reached over 2 million, and this has collapsed the immigration courts. The vast majority of those seeking asylum have been allowed to enter the U.S., given a court order, and turned loose. The problem for them is they're not allowed to work while seeking asylum, and that places a burden on governmental agencies to care for these people. A significant number of them never turn up for scheduled court dates because they realize their chances of being granted asylum are somewhat diminished, and this leads to people working off the books and engaging in a shadow economy. Well, Joe Biden opened the door to illegal immigration, and now that's coming back to bite him, he has no real solutions. Any effort to curb this migration is met with resistance from liberal-leaning Hispanic members of Congress. They object to any deal being formed in either the House or Senate that would restrict immigration since they view it as future voters for them. I will agree that we need to reform our immigration laws, but before we can do that, we need to secure the border. That means total security. It means that anyone crossing the border illegally is immediately deported with no ability to ever return to the U.S. It means you have to obey our laws when you enter. It means if you apply for asylum and are refused, which 90% of those applying should be, then you're ineligible to ever return. And once we accomplish this, Then and only then we can address our immigration laws and make those necessary changes. But those are changes that Democrats will not agree to. They worry about a lot of things, but not our borders. But when the cost of taking care of all those illegal immigrants comes home to these Democratic mayors and governors, they want the taxpayers around the rest of the nation to foot the bill. One final thing. Yesterday I mentioned the dilemma the Democrats are in with Senator Bob Menendez. It got more complicated for them when gold bars seized in Menendez's home were part of a group one of the co-defendants claimed were stolen from him in a robbery. Someone's got some explaining to do, and it sure isn't me. It's been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.